Get started. Hello, welcome to Monday 5:30 Mindfulness Meditation half hour. My name is Casey. Welcome back. This is July 14th, 2 weeks into my birthday month. Um, Meditation has a lot of benefits, and a lot of those benefits are um, conceptualized using descriptors. Like it makes us feel more balanced, more grounded, more rooted in the present moment. Another way to describe the practice and the benefits of meditation is that it makes us feel more centered. And that's a concept that I wanted to focus on today because the other day I was meditating, and according to the Zen Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, there are three types of emotions: pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And when we sit down, we get to notice and identify whatever our emotional state is manifesting as the present moment comes and goes, moment by moment, breath by breath, bringing us different sensations physiologically, mentally, physically. And we ride those waves and we notice where we're at. And we continue to stay anchored, yet another descriptor, anchored through awareness of the breath, awareness of the present moment experience with acceptance. And the acceptance part is part of coming back to the center being our breath, our true nature, the focal point. A mantra can also be a centering technique or tool that we use in our meditation practice. And if you have a mantra meditation, sometimes it helps to say the mantra on the breath out because you are releasing literally the breath. And there's a decompression that would be the yin of the breathing cycle. Inhale would be the yang. The autonomic nervous system is the play between inhalation and exhalation. Obviously, we need both. But when we practice our meditation, it can help to spend a little extra time on the exhale because we are down regulating our nervous system when we do that. When we inhale, the sympathetic nervous system gets triggered. It happens every time we breathe in. Our heart rate speeds up. A little bit of adrenaline gets dripped into our bloodstream. The diaphragm or the lungs expand. There's tension there from the inhalation. Happens every time we breathe in. And as we exhale, that's the decompression, the release, the relaxation. The parasympathetic nervous system gets triggered. And that's what happens when we relax. That is necessary. And oftentimes we're kind of running in the red, which is to say we're breathing from our chest. Those are thin, short, shallow breaths, not really getting a lot of oxygen to the blood, to the brain, to the body. And anxiety is easier to experience in that state of consciousness or that state of breathing. When we bring the breath down to the abdomen, we start to feel more centered, start to feel more grounded, anchored, rooted, whatever the term you'd like. And the other day I was meditating and I was experiencing pleasant sensations. And the Buddha talks about a farmer opening up a bag of mixed grains. And when the bag is open, he's able to identify, all right, well, that's rice, that's brown rice, that's white rice, those are beans, that's a kind of seed. And he just notices the different blend of grains there. And that's what we do when we meditate. We notice, oh, okay, right now I'm experiencing fill in the blank. Right now I'm experiencing sadness. Right now I'm experiencing neutrality, not really one way or the other, which with practice, we can actually turn a neutral experience into a positive one because we realize, well, now that I know what positive or pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feel like, I can take the neutral wherever I want. And if I want to make it a little more positive or a little more pleasant, I certainly can. And if you want to, make it unpleasant, then that's certainly your prerogative. You have the right to do that. But the neutral has a lot of potential. But all emotions, all thoughts, all phenomena, present moment gives us, it's all potential to do with what we wish. But we need to get present. We need to notice what it's like to bring ourselves back to the center. And I noticed my mind pulling me away with a kind of desire, and that could be a desire for finances or for recognition, or maybe a person, a romantic interest, or something like that. But once we learn to identify that, we can log it in, as it were, with the myriad of experiences that we have had and will have as our practice continues. And I could feel my mind pulling me away from the center. And there's stories, there's, and it wasn't bad. It was pleasant. And I could see myself being pulled and staying over there in whatever my mind was thinking about. And I thought, oh, I'm experiencing desire right now. And I took a deep breath and exhaled. And within that one cycle of breath, breathing in, breathing out, I felt myself centered again. And with a little bit of practice, you start to feel that, and you start to notice what it's like to be centered and what it's like to fall out of center, or to be pulled in one direction or the other. And I'm going left to right, right to left, but really, however you conceptualize your thoughts, your emotions, your physical sensations, that's part of your practice. However you wish to conceptualize being recentered. But what's cool about the breath is that it's right here in the center. And when we breathe in, we know we're breathing in. When we breathe out, we know that we're breathing out. And wherever our mind takes us, it eventually becomes clear that it doesn't have more power than our mindful breath, because our mindful breath is what brings us right back to the center. And it was interesting because I wasn't trying to fight the emotion, the pleasant sensation of type of desire. But nor was I letting myself run away with it. And I thought, well, this is interesting because I've done this with sadness and it's more challenging. And I've done this with anger and it's more challenging. To think, oh, I'm experiencing anger. All right, bring it back to the center. It's not as though we're running away from anger. We're still experiencing the anger, but we are incorporating, introducing the energy of mindfulness to whatever our emotional, physical, physiological state may be. And it cools us down a little bit. It centers us. We find balance. And recognizing when we are falling out of balance and when we are coming back to balance or to the center is part of the identification process. Opening up the bag of grains and saying, oh, okay, this is what everything is right now. See that, I can see that, I can see that. And we're watching, we're noticing. And we're not trying to manipulate or change the process of our experience. We don't have to. That's what meditation teaches us. These things will change on their own. And as Alan Watts says, the best way to process an emotion is to allow yourself to feel it completely. And it's important to recognize that feeling an emotion and expressing an emotion are two very different things. However, when we meditate, they can become the same thing, because when we meditate and we experience an emotion, we can do something by doing nothing. The action of Wu Wei in ancient Chinese philosophy of Taoism, the doing of non-doing, feeling and doing nothing in the traditional sense, instead of acting out or acting on our emotions or letting our emotions act through us. We just notice them as they come and go. They circulate with our breath and eventually they leave. And this needs to happen in stillness. Absolutely, it's imperative, essential that this practice happens in stillness. And when you sit down and become still, you'll notice why. Very quickly, you'll notice why that's so important, because it's very uncomfortable. And we're not taught to do that. In many ways, it's counterintuitive or paradoxical to what we think as being important, right? People say, don't just sit there, do something. With meditation, we say, don't just do something, sit there. Sit there and notice, watch, right? And as my mind was pulling me away, I thought, oh, well, this is kind of fun. I could stay with this emotion if I wanted to. It's not unpleasant. It's not neutral. It's a pleasant emotion. I feel good when I think about this stuff. But yeah, well, but I want to be centered as I experience that. I also want to be mindful, not completely taken away, one way or the other, whatever it may be, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. And these things change. It ebbs and flows. It's a wave. The fluidity, the insubstantiality of the present moment. A few weeks ago, I spoke to the analogy of sitting on the beach, looking at the waves. And we can think, well, that's a stupid wave. What's that doing there? That's dumb. I don't like that wave. That's a good wave. That's a good wave right there. This one looks bad coming. And it sounds ridiculous to judge waves like that, but we often do that with our present experience. We think, oh, here's a bad emotion. This is not good. I wish I had a better one. It's like, well, if you see it as waves, and if you see the waves as being part of a bigger picture, which would be the ocean, the fluid, ever changing, ever shifting landscape of the ocean or the present moment as it comes and goes, and then comes back again, it changes our understanding. And then we don't have to fight. And fighting is where tension comes from. Fighting is where stress comes from. And Eckhart Tolle says anxiety is it's caused from being here, but wanting to be there. In other words, we're where we are, but we feel like we should be somewhere else. That's where anxiety or tension comes from. And we all know what that feels like. If you've ever been stuck in traffic, we know what that feels like. Oh God, I got to get there. I should have been there already. And we actually live our lives that way. But meditation teaches us that it doesn't have to be that way. We find ourselves, and wherever we are, we become centered again. It's imperative that we do this in stillness. Notice where we are, what we're thinking, come back to the breath. The breath centers us. And then we notice as it takes us away. And then we have the choice. Then we have autonomy. Think, all right, well, I want to get lost in this daydream for a little bit. And you can do that. You're an active participant. You're willingly getting lost in the daydream, as opposed to the unconscious perpetuation of past behavior or past habit energy that just pulls us away. And we're kind of a victim of our mind being held hostage by whatever we're thinking or feeling. That can be very uncomfortable. A lot of tension comes from that. Practicing in stillness, noticing where we are and getting recentered, that's the practice. That is the development of meditation. I play the drums, play quite a few different instruments, mainly guitars, but I play the drums too. And right now I'm learning a fundamental, rudimentary drum pattern. It's called a paradiddle. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Paradiddle, paradiddle, right? And I can play it fast up to a certain BPM. BPM is beats per minute when you put a metronome on and it ticks and talks. Those are BPMs, beats per minute. And up to a certain point, I can play it pretty comfortably. But after a little while, at a certain BPM, as it gets higher, I just fall apart. And I see videos of these people playing it so fluidly and lightning speed, light speed with this technique, and the control and the discipline and the muscle memory and the fluidity of this drum pattern, this very basic but crucial, important technique of drumming. I see that and I think, God, how did they get there? And so looking up some videos and stuff, I started really, really slow. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. And it feels so glacial. I think, yeah, but I can't get faster unless I start really slow. And bit by bit, I get a little bit faster. Muscle memory starts to kick in. I love the learning development process of drums. At first, it's just very uncomfortable. It's very forced, artificial, out of sync. And then eventually the muscle memory kicks in and you start to familiarize yourself, and then you get a little bit faster, and then you fall apart and you have to go back. You have to go back. And you have to go back. And I've played drums for years. I'm decent at the drums, but it doesn't matter how much I want to play fast. It doesn't matter how much I believe that I could do this. I have this. If you don't put the time in and the work, you're not going to play fast. I don't care. I don't care who you are. If you want to be a concert pianist or a piano player, it doesn't matter how much you believe in yourself. If you don't put the work in and you step out on stage and play the piano's not going to work with you. That's how these things unfold. That's how we develop. And so to take this very simple beat and bring it back and feel almost like a child hitting these beats, and to go faster and then fall apart, think, all right, let me go back to where I was, and then get a little bit further each time. I mean, that's meditation. Certain things come to us when we meditate. The fruit of meditation is understanding. And when you're ready, you'll get it. But to sit down and to allow yourself to notice where you are and recenter yourself, that's the practice. And then things will come up. Emotions, thoughts, memories, physical sensations, all of these things come to the forefront. And the more we relax, the more we find ourselves back in the center, the more we balance, the more we stay grounded, the more we practice, mindfully, being there for whatever the present moment is giving us, experiencing it fully without expressing it in ways that don't serve us, right? By doing nothing but doing nothing mindfully, we start to rework the neural pathways in our brain. Just like when we sit down and start to play the drums, we think, God, this is too slow. It's like, well, try to play it fast and you'll fall apart. So might as well go back to slow and get back to the fundamentals. And with meditation and stillness, and that is the fundamental. We stop, we sit still, we look deeply, and we become part of the experience. We are the experience as it comes and goes and comes back again. So finding the center, trusting in the process, which again, with the drums, that's all a process. And when I learn this beat and bring it to a tempo or a BPM that is faster than I could have ever gone even a week ago, which is already happening. I mean, muscle memory is an amazing thing. Musical instruments are great for your brain and your body as well. Drums are such a physical instrument. It's math with your body, but to be able to do that and go faster and faster, well, when I have that and when I understand the beat at the level that I wish to understand it or thereabouts, then I'll start another beat and the whole thing will start again. Thank God I'm playing this so slow, but that's how we start. That's how we do it. That's how we move forward. And only at this seemingly incremental pace of, oh, okay, well, my mind took me away that time. Let me bring it back to the center and not judge because I know I'll get plenty of opportunities. Mind pulls you over here. You take a deep breath, stay mindful, not changing what's happening, just incorporating, introducing, infusing, blending mindfulness in with the present moment experience. Uh, every breath is an opportunity. Every thought is an opportunity. Every emotion, every physical sensation. We see it as not a means to an end. God, I wish I could get through this emotion. Or no, don't go. I like this emotion. We see it fluid. We see it as waves. We experience it as waves. And we notice and appreciate the insubstantiality of the present moment, the ever-changing phenomena. And one of the core tenets of Buddhism is that trying to hold on or grasp onto ever-changing phenomena causes endless suffering. And part of that suffering is necessary until our understanding grows, and then it's no longer necessary. And that's really the power of this practice, sitting in stillness. It becomes kind of a superpower because a lot of people might never know what it's like. And that's tragic, but that's, the path that they're on. And there's always the opportunity there. This is always there for us. You can always be still. You can always come back to your breath. If not this breath, then the next one. Mindfulness is just a breath away, or it's a breath you have right now. And we get to come back to that. That is the balance, the push and pull, the yin and yang, that we start to understand at a more fundamental level. And we familiarize ourselves with that when we meditate, when we become still, when we do nothing mindfully. And then we start to do other things more mindfully from that foundational standpoint of meditation stillness. So that's what we have now, almost 10 minutes. Find yourself, comfortable seated position, find your center, and when your mind starts to pull you away, as will happen, come back to your breath. Your breath will help you find the center. Eyes are closed. Take a few deep breaths, relax, but stay alert. Allow yourself to fully integrate into your present moment experience. The analogy of sitting on the beach and judging the various ocean waves as they come and go is an effective metaphor for how we often treat our present moment experience. A lot of judgment and a misunderstanding of the potential that this experience allows. To stay with the ocean metaphor, if we focus just on the surface of the body of water, we notice that it is very temperamental. Sometimes it may be smooth, glassy, calm, tranquil. Other times volatile, restless, stormy, etc. However, when we stay with our breath, we have the option to submerge, as it were, to go a little bit deeper, below the surface level of our emotional, physiological, physical state. And the deeper we go into the water, the less affected we are by whatever's happening on the surface level. The deeper we go, the calmer things become, the safer and more centered we feel. It's not as though the surface of the water has changed in any way, but through the practice, we have changed the way that we experience and express what the present moment gives us. Take a deep breath in. Let it go. When you're ready, gently blink your eyes open. We all wish to understand ourselves, to be in tune more with the world around us, to be in tune with ourselves, to be in harmony with whatever the present moment is giving us. We all wish that we could deal with adverse circumstances with more grace. There are ways to do this, but it does take practice. Much of this stuff does not come naturally. And that's the point. If I could play that beat right away, well, I would just move on to another one. The developmental process really has no finish line. With meditation, we need to be still. And however uncomfortable or however blissful that may be, and the experience varies always, the understanding that we have while we are still, while we are finding that center again, that is the biggest takeaway and the most important part of the practice. And as always, thank you for sharing your practice with me, letting me share my practice with you. See you next week. Bye.